Kei ngā kahika o te Nehenehenui, tēnā rā koutou katoa. I te whānau, welcome to another engaging Puna Kōrero o te Nehenehenui this evening. I'm your host, Leon Hemera, and I'm happy and glad to be here in the hot seats, navigating our way through our kōrero this evening. Right, kia mohi o tātou. Nei, COVID-19 has impacted our lives in many ways. It's also changed some of the most significant parts of our culture, including our tikanga. COVID has also forced us to temporarily suspend our culture, including all of our sort of stuff, forced to temporarily and on our marae. So what does it look like in the long term, the impacts of these changes, and should we use this opportunity to review our tikanga and see what that looks like moving forward? I'd also like to mention i te whānau, and it said today in our poster that my tuakana Leyland was meant to be in tonight, and I said he sends his apologies that he can't join us this evening. So we mihi ana kia koe i te tuakana Leyland. But whānau, I'm glad and I'm happy to have the rest of our panelists join me this evening to navigate our kōrero. So let's have a look who we've got on this evening. Tēnā koutou e ngā whanaunga.
Tēnā koe te whanaunga.
Ora, kia ora.
Mauri ora.
Mauri ora kia tātou katoa. Righty o te whānau, ko e makarona. We're going to get straight into it, but before we do that, I'd like to go around and get used to intro yourselves for our whānau out there that are watching. So if you could intro ko ai koe and no whia koe, and then we'll move on to the next. So we'll start with over on this side, which is Raukura. Kia koe te wā, tēnā koe.
Kia ora tātou, kia ora te whānau, kura roa taku ingoa, wai ka tomania poto ahau, kei tāmaki makaurau ahau e noho ana i tēnei wā.
Tēnā koe, te tuahine, tēnā koe. And next to Raukura, we have Renee, tēnā koe.
Tēnā koutou ngaku huanga o te Nehenehenui. Ko ai tēneki, ko Renee moana ngaku ingoa. He uri tiniki o ngā marae o ngā timani a poto, a te hokinga mai ki te Nehenehenui, ki rere ahu anō hoki, te kaura te marae. Mauri ora kia koutou katoa.
Mauri ora te tuhina, tēnā koe. And down the bottom here, we've got Tiriana, tēnā koe, te tuakana.
Tēnā rā koe te tuakana, tēnā rā tātou, e ngā kaiwhakarongo o te Nehenehenui, o tira o tainui waka, tēnei waikato mania poto e mihi atu nei, he uri tēnei o te ahoroa marae, o tira marokopa, te kōraha ngā marae huhua o tō tātou nei waka o tainui. Ko Tiriana Anderson tōku ingoa, kia ora tātou.
Tēnā koe, Tiriana. And finally, we've got Malena, tēnā koe, te tuhine.
Mauri ora kia tātou e pai nei ko Malaina hua ki tōku ingoa no te taharoa ahau. Kei kirikiri roa ahau e noho ana i tēnei wā. Mauri ora.
Mauri ora, West Coast in the house tonight. E mihi ana kia koutou, tā mātou panelists. Thank you for coming on and having this time with us this evening and helping us all navigate through this kōrero this evening, because I must say it's been the topic of discussion all over the motu and all over social media, on the news and everything. So it's good for us here in Te Nehenehenui to have a chance to have a kōrero and have a wānanga. And I just want to remind ourselves that this is a safe space for all of us. This is our personal kōrero as well. So whatever we say and discuss tonight is all of our personal views. So e mihi ana kia koutou, our panelist, this evening. Ka pai he te whānau. Happy to have everyone on board this evening. We're going to get into it, and I'd like, now I know we all have many aspects of te ao Māori, and including tangihanga, hariru, hākari, and all those practices of tikanga on our marae. We have been affected significantly due to COVID. I want to open our wānanga this evening by having a kōrero and asking you all, how much has COVID impacted your respective marae and hapu? And I'm going to ask, and I'll ask Raukura first. Tēnā koe for our first pātai to open our wānanga. Kia koe te tuhine.
Kia ora, Leon. Why did I know you were going to start with me? I think in terms of the impact, I mean, there's the immediate impacts now that we're dealing with on the court, on the go, that we're constantly reacting to as we move into lockdowns and move out of lockdowns and move through the traffic light system. So those are the short-term immediate impacts. But I also think there may be long-term impacts too, depending on how long this is going to go for. And, you know, if we look at, let's take, for example, the hariru, the hongi, you know, as a tikanga that you mentioned earlier on our marae. If we look at that impact, immediately, you know, one of the things that we were restricted by is actually not being able to touch each other, not being able to hariru, not being able to hongi, not being able to kihi, not being able to awhi. And that's such an innate Māori way of being. That is, you know, really a huge part of our identity and a huge part of the way we relate to each other and we connect with each other. Now, that not being able to do that, I mean, if, you know, speaking plainly, it's just weird going to the marae and not, you know, not being able to kiri ki te kiri, ha, you know, rongo i te ha. So that's been, you know, that's a big impact, an immediate big impact. But then if we look, you know, if this carries on and we have to come in and out of these kinds of practices, think about our tamariki. Now, Hine Korikori is 5 years old. She's going to the marae. Kare tai te hariru. Kare tai te hongi, kare tai te kihi. It's a fist pump or an elbow bump. You know, and if this continues on for maybe the 2, 3, 4, 5 years later, she's going to be 10 years old and her normal might be a fist pump or an elbow, you know, joining. And if we look at the impact of that tikanga and her normalizing that and her going up to kaumātua and her automatic hariru is a fist pump. That would just, you know, that then causes a transformation in one of the most fundamental tikanga that is an innate part of our Māori identity. And we haven't even gotten to the whai kōrero, you know, karanga, tangihanga, you know, just the basics. So it's really, this is a really interesting conversation. And it really gets me really quite excited because it feels like we're entering a new frontier with our tikanga, because an immediate outcome of the situation that the world is in, an immediate outcome is the creation of new tikanga. It's a new tikanga. And how we navigate that creation, how we navigate I want to say adjusting, but, you know, just those conversations and what could happen. But there could be some positive moves and some positive impacts from these new creations. There could also be some backlashes and some serious consequences if we as and if our, you know, the ones who are leading the charge, the ones who are entering these new frontiers or leading the way for us, if we're not really at the source, I think, I want to say at the source of the why. Why are the tikanga in place? What is the tikanga for? What are the intentions of our tikanga? So, yeah, I think I'll start there and then I'll take in another one of the panelists.
Ka pai te tuhini, pai tō kōrero, and I think you've really touched on a significance there of why we do the things that we do on our marae, not even in our marae, in our everyday lives in terms of tikanga. So yeah, I think you may have opened a new can there, Kazi. So we could come back and touch on that kōrero when we come back. But we'll move back around the squares, and I'll move to I'll ask Renee. So we were at the opening of Mangapehi Park a couple of weeks ago, Kazi, and it was good to be together down there and amongst our whānau again, which was beautiful. But for our other marae and for all our marae, and for your marae and hapu, how has the impacts been over the last 2 years in terms of COVID and our marae?
Like everybody else, it's been really, really hard. You know, we can't even do a working bee with all these pre-mandates and post-mandates. There's all these regulations that we have to follow, and even just down to trying to get a working bee, you need to have rat tests. Now, how can you say to your whānau, to our ruruhi, to our koroheke, oh, sorry, you've tested positive, you can't come onto our marae, because e ai ki ngā ture, anei te pūnaha me whai tātou. So, you know, having those conversations, having the right people, who do we get in to do those rat tests? The packaging of kai, because beforehand you couldn't have a kaitahi with the whānau. And again, as Raikura was talking, that is something that we just do intrinsically. It's what we do. We eat together because that's where we aua ara whanaunga, ka whakapakari, I era ara whanaunga while we're having kai. So we've had those conversations. Then you've got do we have, when we open our marae, do we have a pōwhiri time slot? So you have the unvaxxed pōwhiri time slot, a vaxxed pōwhiri time slot, and then you put the pressure on the whānau, because between those different time slots for the vaxxed, the unvaxxed, whoever, COVID, whatever, you've got to get people to come in and clean. Because if we've got to follow these guidelines that are put in place, that just puts more pressure. And it's not like we have thousands of people on our marae because we're restricted. So it's about being well planned. It's about having those conversations. It's about informing your whānau, this is what we need to do to safeguard ourselves, to safeguard our people, especially our kaumātua. Because ki te pānga rātou te mate urutā, ka tino raru. We're lucky. Mātou ngā pakeke, ngā toiohi, some of us, we can bounce back, but our kaumātua, it's a bit harder, you know, so it's that. It's saying to people, hey, you got to stay home. Ko wai mātou te kia ke, oh no, you stay home because you can't come because you got COVID, or no, sorry, you're not vaccinated. Those conversations were really, really hard to have. And ka pupu ake te puehu, I wainganui ngeti, because they're like, this is my birthright. Yeah, I understand that this is your birthright. Your marae, it's all of our birthrights. Ngō tātou ukai pō wera, that's our ahuru mōwai, our whakaruru hau, our marae. And I understand that. I can see both sides of the argument. But for me, it's about the safety of our people. That's paramount for me. But it has been hard. Just getting people on board. And I'm afraid of the long impacts that this has had on our marae. Will we be doing oh, here's your kai pack, see you later? Or will we return the kaitahi, ka kaitahi tātou I roto I te wharekai? Ka hoki atu tātou ki rera? Or is it just because it's easy, it's convenient, we've adapted, so we've changed our tikanga to fit us and to convenience us at this time, but ka pupuru tonu tātou ki wera, ka harānei. So koira ngā kuri mahinati.
Ka pai, Renee. I hear you on the health and safety kōrero, man, and it's you know, health and safety in the marae is big enough, and then when COVID come walking along, it's just amplified it 10,000 times. So thank you for your kōrero e te tuahine. Thank you for that. Tiriana, as Renee was talking about health and safety, because as we know, in Marakopa, health and safety is huge. We got to get people across the awa in a boat,
Absolutely,
in the rain, in the whatever, whatever they throw at us. But putting COVID-19 in the mix, and also for your other marae cousin, how have you found it navigating through the last 2 years?
We've actually been quite fortunate with our different marae, as you would know too, because our marae have been closed, such as Marakopa and Te Horoa marae. Those have been closed throughout the duration of COVID. But the challenge that I see for us is actually not so much the now, it's more so the future. Because the now we just get over and we have to get there, but the future is still coming. So me whakaarohia tērā. And to me, what was the old norm is now not acceptable behavior. Because we've learnt so much with COVID. I mean, everybody understands how COVID has passed, which then innately teaches people how the flu has passed, how colds are passed, all sorts of communicable diseases. And what that does is it in turn makes us change how we practice our different tikanga in the future. And as Raukura and Renee have mentioned, the hariru the ruru and the hongi are the most interesting to me, because when you look at a pōwhiri, it's meant to be the whai kōrero or the karanga instances, and those parts of the pōwhiri where there's supposed to be no contact, where there's supposed to be none of that, and now it's kind of moved. It's spread also into the ruru and the hongi, and that offers up new challenges, as has been mentioned. But I think in the future we will just become a bit more diligent, and a bit more stronger in the future to make hard decisions. Because one of my marae, Te Ahoroa, we had said that there was going to be no hariru hongi, but because whānau just go and hariru hongi, e hara mātou i te atua, so we can't tell them, you're not allowed, you have to sit back down. Nobody's going to do that. So we just let them. And what we say is, we've tried our best, we've informed our whānau understand, how COVID's passed, and it's not like they're doing it naively. They're doing it fully informed. They understand it completely. So yeah, those actions are, theirs, essentially.
Ka pai, tēnā koe Tiriana, and I understand that, bro. Sometimes when you rock up and it gets a little bit awkward, because you don't know what their situation is. You're like, are you hariruing or are you staying away? You're looking at each other eye to eye, and then it's just awkwardness. So you don't know what to do, whether to go forward or go back. And then one reaches out with a fist bump, and then that's about it. So I understand that, bro. And thank you for that kōrero. Thank you. We'll move up the beach now towards Kawhia and Taharo. Milena, how have you fellas been finding it the last 2 years and navigating this COVID world?
I tautoko ane ngā kōrero kua kōrero tia. Exactly the same in every instance. I think it didn't help that we had such a deficit model imposed upon us, where there wasn't any consideration in terms of our practices. It didn't help. Now we've got to work hard to lift those vibrations. And what does that look like? So yeah, we're the same as everybody else that's spoken.
Ka pai, tēnā koe te tuahine. Thank you. Ka pai, and Raukura actually spoke on this next this part-time, so I'm going to ask our other panelists, because you touched on it just briefly there, Raukura, but I'll come back to Renee. And how difficult has it been to not physically wānanga and kaupapa at your actual marae? Most of them we've been having exactly like this on Zoom and other platforms like that, but we can't do the same things that we normally do in our wānanga. So how have you found that, Renee, moving through there?
Oh, extremely difficult. We were fortunate enough, I suppose, you could say, we actually managed to have a working bee, and just talking about kungi. It's a term that Brad Totorewa coined over the weekend at Rangiriri, which is, that you go in for a hungi but you actually kiss and all that kind of stuff. Even though, as Tiriana mentioned, people come in with their own understanding, we just couldn't help it. That's just what we do. You just do it. And we haven't seen some family members for over 2-3 years, and not to pā kiri ki te kiri was very hard. This informal ruru, the whakaratarata, I can't do it as much as I try. And even with the mask, wearing masks, our whānau are really good. They've adjusted to the mask life, the ārai life, but it's been really hard to do comms, try and do wānanga on Zoom, because that engagement isn't the same as it is kanohi ki te kanohi. So when you are face to face, you feel it, you see it, you hear it. Whereas forums like this, which is becoming the norm for us, is online, you don't get that āhuatanga Māori. You have a great space to have a kōrero, a great space to have a wānanga, but when you really want to live it, engage it, do what you can with it, practice it in the space that we all know to be our marae, we can't do that. Yeah, so it has been difficult. It has been difficult, but I've really enjoyed the times that we have been allowed to get back together and have those face-to-face opportunities, have a kaitahi, just have good old laughs, catch up with whānau that we haven't seen for a while. Yeah.
Oh boy, tēnā koe Renee. And for you, Tiriana, I know you're a bit of a technical man yourself, but are you over all the Zooms and all the Zui and all of that stuff? Would you rather just get straight back into kanohi ki te kanohi? Kia hao tō whakaaro.
I'm absolutely over Zooms because I think my kira takonas has worsened over this 2-year COVID period. I hope in the next 10, 20 years, the government offers us free spectacles for this last 2 years of having to look at a screen. But yes, it has been quite the challenge having to, distance yourself from the kaupapa, because it's quite hard, because we see kaupapa as being together with others. And so it's changed, for me, it's changed the complete way I look at it. I mean, I used to think I couldn't grieve for someone over a live stream or over a Zoom, but now it's become so real that I truly do grieve over Zoom and over live, just as I would in person. And what I see, and I think that's where the sensitivity comes into it. This is actually where our tupuna, when they were going through the 1918 the influenza pandemic of that time, our tupuna grew up quite empathetic, quite aroha to ki te tangata. That's a lot of the kōrero that we can hear and that we have heard, and now it's quite prevalent why they were like that. I mean, when you go through a struggle like this, there's nothing better than aroha. Even when you're online like this, if you can send aroha with a big smile, it's felt, and I think that's the biggest thing. Kia mau tonu ki tērā, ki te wairua o te kotahitanga. Aha koa, kei runga i enei āhuatanga.
Kia ora, tēnā koe Tiriana. And Malena, we've clocked up a few Zoom hours, and I guess the one thing that's come out of that is all of our kaumata and kuia have adjusted and learnt how to jump on a hui topa, and some of them are even better than me now. They're getting on the controls and getting into the links quite easy. How has your guys kaumata and kuia been living in this digital world in the last 2 weeks, in the last 2 years?
I'm lucky I have a mother who's pretty gunny at all that sort of stuff. And so she just finished working at the wānanga, and so when the first lockdown occurred, she didn't take long to adapt, but that's her. She's right into innovation. She's got the Apple everything, blah blah blah. And it was difficult, but I think that just reminds us as their children and then their mokopuna to be patient with them and make the time to go and spend with your pakeke, with your kaumātua, and support them. You mightn't have to teach them, just set it up. We had a tangi over the September lockdown, and my auntie didn't have a clue how it worked and was excited every time we got on, and still doesn't have a clue how it works. Didn't matter, because she had a whole heap of people surrounded her, that supported her. So if there isn't that function where we don't have to expect them to do so, well then don't, just us be there, and forces us to spend more time with them too.
Kia ora, tēnā koe Malena, tēnā koe. Good reminder, good reminder. Now that we can go and see our kaumata and kuia face to face and check in on them, because yeah, we've been keeping a distance from them, but yeah, it's time that we do check on them physically and make sure that they're all good. So, thank you for that, Te Tohine. Tēnā koe. Okay, I'll come back to you, Raukura. He pātai tēnei. Has COVID presented us with a unique opportunity to review some of our tikanga on our marae? Big question, that one. Yeah.
Yeah,
How whakaaro?
absolutely. And I don't think, well, the thing is, I don't think COVID is the only opportunity for us to review our tikanga on our marae. I think each new generation of leaders, has an opportunity to review our tikanga on our marae so that we're evolving and adapting to this ever-changing world. Ko te ao huri tēnei, e huri nei tātou. Totally. And I think it's, these, especially during the lockdowns, actually, I stayed with my parents and we spent a lot of time in wānanga because there was nothing else to do. There was nowhere else to be. There was no hui to go to. There was no marae kumiti hui to go to. So, we really did. We spent a lot of time just wānanga, heaps of different things, heaps of different tikanga, and just, it was an awesome opportunity too to sit with mum and dad and just pick their brains. And it was an awesome opportunity for them to rest. So totally, I think COVID has been an awesome opportunity for us to review and wānanga our tikanga and creating, I don't even say pathways yet, but just sparking questions. There's questions that you wouldn't think to ask if you're on the go, like just on the go. When's the next hui? When's the next, tangihanga has popped up. Okay, we got to go. But these past 2 years, we've actually had time to just pause and think and really wānanga inside of ourselves as well as in conversation with other. I think that part of COVID has been a blessing.
Kia ora. Kia ora. Tēnā koe te tuini. Yeah, thank you for that. Man, I wish I was in your fellas wānanga during that. Would have been me. Actually, every one of your fellas wānangas would have been me to join throughout the COVID. But Renee, yeah, how whakaaro o tēnā is a time for us to pull out those tikanga books and have a look and go through them and see what needs to be reviewed. Has this time sort of brought up that sort of segue into that sort of kaupapa? What do you reckon?
Oh, what a hard pātai. E hika. No pressure. Oh, hika. For me, yeah, it is. And e tika ana nā kōrero. Ko te ao huri tēnei, and we have to evolve. But in saying that, my whakaaro is kei te marae, te tikanga, ongo rātou tikanga. So, we do things, you need to do things that are right for you, for your marae, for your people, but kaua waihoma tētehi, e tohu, waihoma te katoa, because at the end of the day, the marae is for the people, so it should be the people who talk about what is good, what's a tikanga for them, because, yeah, we need to evolve, we need to just move with the times, we need to change with the times. So again, it's that kōrero, it's that upfront, this is what we want to do, whānau, what do you think? And at the end of the wānanga, have a consensus, so everybody's on the same page and they fully understand what does that look like, what does that feel for me, for my whānau Otewa, for my whānau at Dakota. So there's no one that's going, oh, I don't know. So if anyone asks, oh, what do you do at Otewa? Oh, I know, this is what we do. This is what we decided as whānau to do. Or I know this is ngā whakaaro, ngā tikanga o Dakota. So it's those conversations, and we're going to have some people that are like, nah, I whakatongia tēnei i ngā wānga, nā ngō koroheke wēnei I whakarita karehe take te panoni. So and sometimes people are going to go, oh, that's our kaumātua. But no, sometimes it's our pakeke and it's our taiohi too, because purely it could be they're too scared to move, or number two, it's well, if we put that aside, what are we going to replace it with? Sometimes it's not replacing it. Sometimes it's just, let's have a look at how we could do this better. You know, nowadays you see our whānau doing karanga with the ara, with their masks on. So some whānau, nah, take it off. You know, ngaku wai mari he waha papa ngoku. So with the mask or without a mask, ka taia tonu e au. So, you know, it's up to the marae to say, yep, nana, you wear your mask. Or waiho mā ngā rangatahi, ngā taihohi i tērā wahanga e piko, mō ngā kaupapa whānau. Engari he kōrero anō mō ngā tangihanga, mō era hui ngā motuhake, ka tai mai te tene me te mano, waiho mā ngā kaumātua. But if it's, we're going to go this huarahi, tēnā me whai a tātou katoa I te raka huarahi.
Ka pai, tēnā koe Renei. E mihi ana kia koutou e mā taki mai ana marunga ipurangi. Just a reminder to our whānau that are viewing on our Facebook and on our Twitter and on our YouTube. You can post your comments in the Facebook comments section. Ask any pātai that you want e te whānau, and we'll have a little Q&A session this evening. Don't forget, we will do our utmost best to answer every question that comes in. So kia kaha koutou, put those questions in there. Ka pai, we are going to, I'll come to you now, Tiriana. Now this is a pātai for you, Kai. We've seen a lot of unique tikanga created by hapu and marae, for example, providing pōwhiri like schedules on specific timetables, having limited number of people in a ope or whakaeke. Do you think that this could be the standard practice moving forward? Do you think it's going to stay like this? Or do you reckon we'll go back to totally pre-COVID? Kia au whakaaro.
I think that one is, I'm not quite decided on that one yet, cuz, because it seems to actually flow quite well with having time slots. Like for me, I think it might be just because of my OCD and like having things on time, but it actually works, you know, having those times set out, but that's without the restrictions of COVID. And now when it comes to COVID and arranging all of that on your marae, it's also having the manpower behind it to ensure that it flows, you know, appropriately. It's actually having those messages being put out to all of the whānau to ensure that they do know what times whakaeke are happening. And yeah, I think that's really, really important and really key.
Tēnā koe te tuakana, tēnā koe. And I'll ask you, Malena, same question. Do you think that we will be in this boat for much longer, or you can will default back to pre-COVID ways, or do you prefer having it like that? Kia au whakaaro.
I think it's a great opportunity for all the wānanga that have already been happening to continue to happen. It's challenging our thinking. It's making us also go back to a lot of things that we've forgotten, like how important Māori is, the levels of consciousness, and that those aren't determined by Gregorian calendars, time and spaces. You know, I think that's really important. So I look forward to it. It's reminding us how much perhaps we are colonized in terms of our thinking. So when the deficit approach that our government put upon us in terms of, you know, isolation and everything that goes against our tikanga, when that occurred, that created such a huge, not necessarily just tangible problem, but the spiritual problem is just become worse. The segregation, the way we talk to people, the way we think about decisions, you know, people possibly that don't agree with COVID could possibly watching this space and thinking, you know, what do we know in tikanga, but how do we respond to that? And it has to be a response I runga I te ora. So yeah, I think this is the new normal. But I think if we come together and start practicing what we've been talking about and singing about for a very long time, I think we can make the change. And I think it's this particular reanga led by Raukura. No. You know, because it's us now, you know, in terms of like Rangiriri last week, Renee was absolutely instrumental in leading the karanga space, you know, and she's young as. And doesn't mean because she's young as she doesn't have the capability, but you know, there's lots of wānanga that needs to be had. And whilst the event was auspicious occasion, we didn't have a lot of people on our paipai, did we, Renee? You know, it gradually become fuller and fuller as the days went. So it's forcing us to have those decisions. Those of us that didn't think that these responsibilities were going to arrive now, well, they're here, and we need to start to design what that would look like now. You know, are we going to continue to listen to kōrero like women can't lead pai Māori? Well, where's the evidence that can't happen? And we might have to consider doing that because we don't have a lot of men stepping up into those positions. Yes, it might have been the way once upon a time, but rather than going straight to the kao, can't do that, we have to have a wānanga about that, because for our karakia to continue, we might just have to. And Raukura and Renee have absolutely got the capacity to kawe that. Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Tērā, kawe, tērā.
Pai tēnā kōrero, pai tēnā kōrero. Ka pai. Tēnā koe, Malena. Thank you for that. Ka pai te whānau. I've got a pātai for Tiriana now. This one's for you, bro. We've had to meet virtually as we are right now for hui, for wānanga, for tangihanga for the past 2 years. We know that that's no stranger to us. Do you think that the virtual marae will ever replace the physical marae? Now, I'm asking you this pātai, bro, because I know you do a little bit of mahi in that space. So what's your whakaaro on that? Will we ever see the virtual marae?
I think you actually have to take it back to the inception of this concept of marae. I've through my research, I've found that marae, this concept of marae that we understand it, come around during the 1800s, and it was through the development of pā wharekura. And you know, prior to pā wharekura was pā maioro, pā whakairo, pā tū wata wata, those different pā. And then in prior times when a pā would be overrun or overtaken, or, you know, e rāhuatanga ka huri hei urutā. And then coming back into the pā wharekura, our tūpuna, the kōrero that I found is that our tūpuna established these wharekura to hold the things that we kept ever so dear. Pērā hoki te whakapapa, ngā taonga, ngā raukura era, momo taonga, ngā whakairo. And to me, if you look at it like that, and you look at a virtual marae and what its purpose is, and that is to teach and to hold kōrero, I don't think it will overtake or it will replace, but I think it will enhance and contribute to the overall purpose of a pā wharekura and of a marae. That's given us, you know, just that concept alone of a pā wharekura gives us the opportunity and the license, I should say, to create virtual marae. To establish virtual marae that will hold our kōrero tuku iho. I mean, the possibilities with virtual marae are endless. You can place individuals into the marae, which is something that we're working on, and you can have that kaumātua give that kōrero about that whakairo. There's, you know, the opportunities are endless when you're talking virtual. And the cool thing about that is that actually interests our tamariki. That's now taking te ao Māori into te ao huri. You know, yeah, very big kōrero there, cuz. But I don't think it will replace those spaces.
Ka pai te kōrero. Thank you for that, bro. Raukura, he hao whakaaro on virtual marae. What do you think of you know, walking into the whare and into a virtual whare and practicing inside there? He hao whakaaro.
I think it's awesome. It actually points to the new frontiers that I was talking about at the beginning of our wānanga. Like, this is the time. This is the time for us to enter those new frontiers. And it's, you know, the pā, as Tiri and was talking about, it was created. Like, it was created in the 1800s. We didn't bring this tikanga from Hawaii. We created it here. And we're now in a new age and in a new world where it's time to create new pā. I mean, you've got a pā wharekura and a pā matihiko. You know, what's wrong with that? That's awesome.
Absolutely.
I think it's really, really exciting. And I loved it. I'd love to enter a pā matihiko and take people through and, you know, practice our tikanga, because there's no, can still karanga. Ka tae tonu te karanga, te whai kōrero, te waiata, te wānanga, you know, can still do all of those things. I think it's exciting. Go us.
Go us, I reckon. Go us. Hea o whakaaro, Renee, you know, what do you reckon? What if me and Tiriana come to you one day and we said, cuz, put this suit on, you know, like the ones where they make those people and they've got all the dots all over them, and you want to clone you and you can be a virtual karanga for your marae. What do you reckon about that? Hea o whakaaro.
The teacher side of me, that poto is going, oh man, yeah, this is awesome. But the other side of me is I'm a bit scared. I'm a bit scared where this could potentially go. You know, could it replace me? Could I be easily recorded? And that's her. We'll just record her. We don't need to see her. All good. Yeah, so I understand. It's just, it's an awesome opportunity. It is. I'm also fearful what could potentially happen as well. The loss of, not so much loss, but it's just something different. That's all. It's something different for me. It's something that I'm not used to, but I should be getting my head around it as a 21st century teacher. And, you know, te ao matihoko tēnei ki mō tātou rangatai, and totally get it. They would whakarata to that whakaaro. And I can see the endless possibilities that we could have with a virtual marae. But I agree, it won't replace our marae. I'm on the fence here, sorry, I'm just a bit, it's something new, it's the new frontier. It's a new frontier for me.
Can I just add in there? Because the one thing that I've noticed too is when it comes to virtual marae is it cannot replace, and that's what I say, is that it cannot replace our marae. But one thing that virtual marae can do is they can give other people that are learning about our ao the opportunity to go into those spaces, and maybe, and you know, it's a little bit harder to disrespect our marae if you're going to a virtual marae first. You know, and then that way, e rite ana te tangata ki te haramai ki te marae tūturu. They're ready to come to our real marae. But that's the point I'm making, is that it's more of a resource for teaching and passing of knowledge. We can practice our tikanga and everything in there, but kei reira tonu, kei te marae tonu te mana.
Ka pai, tērā koe Tiriana. Thank you for that. And finally, wrapping up this kōrero, hea o whakaaro, Melina. What do you reckon about virtual marae? Well, not tomorrow, today. Hea o whakaaro.
Yep, totally agree. Digital space is awesome. And the potential within our own people who can create all that stuff, it's just choice too. Sometimes it's hard to describe wairua, but you could perhaps have that in a spiraling, I don't know, you know, you get what I mean, you know, that could be, you know, people talk about the white light or stuff like that, you know, that could be appearing, which is a reminder to kia tika te mahi, you know, and that's why we do things like that, so it's pretty limitless, and my teacher Pōtai is like, yes. And I am a bit wanga about our traditions and that sort of stuff. But like what I was talking about before, if we keep continuously having lots and lots of wānanga, because remember when wānanga wasn't even a word, wānanga was just wānanga o Aotearoa or something like that. Yeah. Now it's the wānanga is different to a hui, you know. So yeah, it seems to be more solution focused, which was it was always the purpose of a wānanga, you know. Co-designers in now. We've been co-designing forever.
Forever.
You know, all those sorts of things. So absolutely keen, and it could be like the pre-introduction to the introduction of the marae. Tinanga.
Oh, boy, I like that one. The pre-intro to the intro, eh? Yeah, that's one to put in the cards. Ka pai. Alrighty, te whānau, and our whānau that are watching at home, e mihi ana kia koutou, e mātakitaki mai ana marunga ipurangi on our Facebook page, our Twitter, and our YouTube. But our whānau on Facebook have been putting in some pātai for us, and we'll have a look and see if we can pull some else. Ka pai. Our first one is from Māori, tēnā koe te kahi. She's asked rats testing. Have any of you been involved where whānau have been rat tested, whether it's be at a hui or tangihana? And that's part one. Part two is, and how have you dealt with the whānau who haven't wanted to be tested? Pai tēnā pātai Māori. And I think Malena is putting her hand up for this one. Kia koe te tuhine?
I'm just going to use the recent one, Rangiriri. Brad had created all of the COVID plan prior to the red lights changing or whatever the mandates were. Gosh, there were so many changes, and he stuck to it. And so that was choice, and he kept on reiterating the same message. And so there were heaps of people that arrived and were tested and got sent away because they were positive. So it was kind of like, don't even bother coming if you're not going to engage in a rats test. So that messaging, that comms, that kōrero had been consistent for the last few months. It was pretty easy. And because he does liveys at the randomest of times, all the time, that messaging seemed to be widespread, and because there was a form of excitement about the trenches and having that opportunity to go. So everyone had to be rats tested, even those of us that were working on inside every single day, we had to be rats tested. So that was the first and only hard out kaupapa I've been to, because Tangi kind of gave everyone the benefit of the doubt that they were going to arrive, and that was more of a focus on whether you were double vaxxed or not. So now, yes, Māori, it can work. That was a huge hui. That went on for 4 days. It was 3 sessions, Wednesday, Thursday, 2 Pōwhiri Friday, and then the big one on Saturday, plus all the workers. It's doable. Just got to comms it out and be consistent and be absolute paramount in terms of what you're going for, because we didn't want to be that kaupapa that was going to be the super spreader.
Ka pai. Tēnā koe. Yeah, thank you for that. I didn't actually make it to the trenches, but my wife did, and she said it was planned to a T. You know, you turn up, you go here, you do all of this, and a lot of our whānau were really, really impressed. So, e mihi ana kia koutou ngā kai whakahaere o tērā kaupapa, o tērā kia koe Brad, if you're watching. Bro, those pop-up lives, all right? You're keeping the whānau up to date in every minute of the hour of the night. So it seems to work. So ka pai tēnā mahi. Ka pai. Thank you, Māori. I'm actually going to direct this question around to the rest of our whānau and see how we've all sort of dealt with this one at various kaupapa, because a lot of our marae are starting to open up just in the last recent month or so. So raukura, hia o whakaaro mo tēnei pātai.
I haven't actually come across this. I haven't been to a hui where we've been, the request is to be rat tested, but I really, I respect Brad's consistency, just a really consistent messaging and whakatinana. Ki te whai koe i tērā huarahi, be consistent, whakatinana. He mana tō te kupu, and that's what I respect. Engari mo ngā hui puta noi te motu, huri noi ngō tātai marae, he huarahi pai tērā hei whai. Be consistent, whakatinana i o kupu, i te mea he mana nui tō te kupu. Yeah.
Kia ora, tēnā koe. Ka pai. We've got another question in our pauaka pātai, so let's have a look. This is from Winston, tēnā koe koro. And his pātai is, how do we reconnect with unvaccinated whānau who feel segregated from their pā, which is their place of rongoa wairua because of COVID restriction. Pai tēnā pātai. Renee, hea o whakaro o tērā pātai?
Oh, tēnā koe, Winston, mō taiwa pātai. We're fortunate enough, like most marae, they'd have Facebook pages, marae Facebook pages, because we have a number of whānau who are unvaccinated. My sister, Ngaku Tētai o Ngaku Tuakana, she's unvaccinated. And so she, we were about, we love you no matter what, if you're vaccinated or unvaccinated. So we would always constantly keep our whānau up to date with all comms that went out. When we had our working bee, at that time there was no mandate, so we said hoki hoki mai tātou ki ngō tātou marae. So we've always been inclusive and ensuring that everybody understands that this is their place, this is their marae. So we've been quite fortunate in that respect, where we haven't really had many people not feel isolated or segregated from our pā, purely because it's that comms, it's understanding everyone has an opinion and respecting each other's opinions and the stance that they take, and just reiterating to everybody, no tātou te marae, nā tātou mā tātou. So that's been big for us. Also, it's just, again, the communication, keeping the comms lines open, being consistent, just reminding everybody it's whatever kaupapa we have going, it's for everybody, unvaccinated or vaccinated. So that's been huge for us. Yeah, we're all inclusive.
Ka pai. Tēnā koe, Renee. Thank you for that. Tautoko your kōrero, consistency is the key for a lot of things, organising. And in life in general, I know if I kept consistently going to the gym, I'd be a whole lot better off myself. So thank you for that. Ka pai e te whānau. Is there anyone else that would like to add to this pātai from Winston? Tiriana, have you any kōrero?
I think the big thing is just ensuring that we, like Renee says, we let them know that this is their marae, because with the lifting of the mandates and all of that, it's that reintegration of whānau of non-vaxxed with vaxxed, and now that the restrictions are not there, the whakaaro is still there. So I think it's gonna be a marae by marae, whānau by whānau basis, but I'm guessing that throughout your actual daily life and daily interactions with your different whānau, is that you'll learn how to reintegrate, and that by the time we get to a kaupapa at the marae, there will be some sort of easement around that.
Ka pai. Tēnā koe, Tiriana. Tēnā koe. Nothing raukura you'd like to add to this kōrero?
Yeah, just briefly, and it was just responding to or adding to what Renee said about communications and just the importance of powerful communications. And I'd like to maybe suggest and offer that perhaps one of the first things we can do with our communications is actually remove the wording unvaccinated. And stop separating the vaccinated from the unvaccinated, because we're whānau kotahi. We're whānau tātou. Stop the separation. So I think that might be a good place to start, actually. There's no such thing as vaccinated and unvaccinated. We're all one.
Kia ora kōti tēnā.
Kua kehi.
Kia ora tātou katoa. Thank you for answering those pātai, and thank you to our whānau that asked those pātai e mihi ana kia koutou katoa. Rightio, he te whānau. I want to slightly move our kōrero in a slight different direction now. Not too far, but just slightly over to a different direction. Sadly, a few weeks ago, we lost one of our greatest Māori intellects of our time, Dr. Moana Jackson, moi mai rā e te rangatira. His tangi was attended by tens of thousands of whānau and people all over the motu. Moana left a haki and wishes that there was to have no Christian karakia at his tangi, and that women will be allowed to stand and speak on the pai. which is what was his wishes for his final tangihanga. What were your guys' initial whakaaro after seeing the likes of Kiritapu Allen and Annette Sykes opening and speaking on the pai? And I'll ask you first, Raukura, he hao whakaaro mō era tēnā koe?
My initial whakaaro was, oh man, what do you mean? We got to do the karanga, we got to do the karanga for the kara, we got to do the karanga for the kai, and you want us to do the whai kōrero too. Oh, wow. You know, that was my initial reaction. And it was, totally facetious. But there was like well, what are the men for?
We carry your bags.
But in all seriousness, I was just like, yeah, okay then. And personally, and this is just purely vanity, I love karanga, but I hate my karanga voice. Like I have it that I don't have a very good karanga voice, and I think I would be a much better kai kōrero on marae. So I would, if I could choose to be a kai karanga or a kai kōrero, I would definitely choose kai kōrero. Definitely. And I'd love to stand on our maniapoto marae and just take on our men. I think that would be like, yes, ahumai, anei ahumai te pairata, ke kone. That was my initial reaction to that.
Ka pai rekura, pai tēnā. Yeah, that's cool. Pai tēnā whakaaro. Renee, did you have the same sort of did you have the same initial reaction as Raukura, or was yours different, or what were you doing when you saw that pop up on the news? Kia hao whakaaro?
Well, see, the other side, my other side and my mother's side, we're kahungunu. So I was like, yeah. But then this side of me was like, oh, no, I'm getting shot down. Don't even try. So yeah, te patu. And then my rereahu maniapoto side outweighed my Ngāti Kahungunu and Ngāi Takoto sides. And I was like, yeah, nah. I would love to, because sometimes, and I'm one of those, I'm going to be honest and put my hand up. I sit there sometimes on the pie and I think, I probably could have done a better job. And that's, and I think, I know that's really, really bad to say, but sometimes I do think that. And men probably say that when they hear me do karanga or do a mōtete, I could do better than her. Oh, good, but sometimes I wish I could, but I know that's not my place. And that's just how I've been brought up. And I don't think I'll ever change. But in saying that, I have been in a position where I've had to shut a man down on my marae, and out came my tupuna, my ruruhi, Ngaki Kero came out of me and told him, sit down. And that was just in the pōwhiri, because he was doing wrong. But if I was somewhere else, if I was in Waikato, if I was anywhere else, no way would I do it. But because I was home, I did it. Yeah, so I think, again, I'm going to say I won't stand. I'll never ever stand still. If I kōrero, I would love to, but I know I don't have the depth or breadth of knowledge like our men. And like I could have said, man, I got enough bloody jobs to do anyway. No, I don't need another one. Come on. Give a break. Yeah, so no. I definitely, koina, because it goes back to te take tuai te tāne. It's the realm of tū mātauinga. And ko mātou te hunga whakaputa tamaiti, te kōpū, so tiakina, tērā. And that's purely what I'm going on, because, kare no kia whakaputa, kia whānau tamaiti māua, but we will in time, just it's not right now. But yeah, for me, it's tiakina tērā. And waiho mā te tāne, let the man take the hits, and we'll just clean up as ladies do, we clean up.
Kia ora.
Yeah, so koina.
Kia ora. Tēnā koe tuahine. Tēnā koe. And Malaina, what was your whakaaro when you first saw that pop up What side of the fence were you sitting on there, Kazi?
I just think it was courageous, very courageous. I think about all the movers and shakers in the past that have, Naida Glavish, who first said kia ora whilst working in tolls, Ngā Tamatoa, who did walk that movement on behalf of us. A lot of them aren't around anymore to see what's happened because of their courage once upon a time. So, ko puta te kōrero, and I think there's going to be a whole heap of wānanga. I think what shouldn't happen is people straight out say no. I think there needs to be a discussion. It needs to go back to marae or hapu. If I use Te Taharo as an example, it's a very female-led space, mai rā no, so it could be something that we pull on in terms of guidance in that space. So I'm not on the fence, I'm just still sitting on the ground. But look forward to having those wānanga and want to be there to suggest when we're in that wānanga space, have a think first before you just straight cuddle that opportunity, because if we didn't think about things a bit better back in the 70s, we wouldn't have reo now. So that's my position on papa. See, papa.
Me and Tiriana might be sitting next to you on the floor if we got nothing left to do, eh, Tiriana? We might be tikanga holes, I think.
We'll be in his Chrysler.
What's your whakaaro on that one, bro? What was your first initial thoughts when you saw that? Was it like foo mean, or was it like foo? I don't know. What was your whakaaro?
I think I was just ohorere at first. Ohorere. That somebody had that courage to make that their final wish, and especially someone of that stature. Knowing that it would be fulfilled, somebody of that mana makes that ohaki, it will be fulfilled. That's how I saw it. But the other thing too is that I saw that it allowed the opportunity for a lot of iwi, hapu, marae, whānau to actually wānanga within themselves. What is this concept of pōwhiri? Hiaha tēnei mea te pōwhiri. And kia au nei, I'm not qualified at all to speak, in my opinion, on karanga. So I'm going to speak on it from a more of a tikanga perspective. And kia au nei, I feel very challenged. I've got all my tuahine in this room, and then my tuakana over there. We're both being cornered now. But yes, it's like, let me give you an example. I went to a conference one time, and we were at the conference dinner, and I sat at this conference dinner table with some quite mana people, and Moana Jackson was one of them. Anne Salmon was another one, and there were a few other heavy hitters around the table. And I thought I'd make the statement in that wahine shouldn't whai kōrero on the marae at this table. And the reasoning that I thought I'd make that is, like, I wanted to hear what their whakaaro was. I wanted to invoke discussion and wānanga. But for myself, I look at karanga as being the epitome of the reo o te wahine, and that is so cliche. We hear that all the time. But kia hau nei, like has been mentioned, is ko rātou anō te hononga kia io, ki o tātou atua, i te mea ko rātou anō te tangata I whakatongia ko ngā mea katoa o ngā atua katoa ki roto ki a rātou. And that's with our wahine. But then I also look at what is the purpose of karanga. And I think back to all of our different stories of manu, like ngā tamariki a whiro, ngā weri a whiro, and the different birds, and how our manu carry messages, and how our manu whistle. They speak in quite a high frequency, just as our wahine do when they karanga. And I don't want to put too much importance. I don't want our wahine to put so much importance on whai kōrero, because you have the opportunity to speak, to release mamai, and that is through karanga. And please do not think that whai kōrero is the epitome. That is my number one thing, is that's what seems to be happening here, is whai kōrero is becoming the top kaupapa for a pōwhiri. I know that when I go to a kaupapa, I don't go there for the whai kōrero. I go there to actually see my whānau. You know, it's a means to an end. So kia hau nei me whakaaruhia e rāhuatanga. We need to actually wānanga. What is it? What is a pōwhiri trying to achieve? Also looking at our marae, the actual layout of a marae, that being ngā rangi tūhaha and us traversing ngā rangi tūhaha up until we get to where we are now. And you listen to the reo of the kaikaranga, when they stand at that waharua, they are at the highest that their voice can go, the highest pitch that they can go. And as they progress through and they get to the whare, whakatau maira is said in our reo of now. You know, ka hoki mai ki tēnei reo. So that's something, you know, us tāne, we don't do that. We stand in one space and speak in one tone, and that's monotone, and it should be reo karakia. You know, there's a lot of different tikanga that are missing when it comes to pōwhiri. But yeah, we're just going to be courageous and ensure that we are maintaining tikanga like aroha, manaakitanga, whakaute, e rāhuatanga. So long as we are upholding those tikanga, e kore, you know, e kore e whati.
Kia ora. Ai. Kia ora, Raukura, you got something to add?
Yes, definitely. I love that, Tiriana. Thank you. That I rawetera. And this focus on whai kōrero, you know, it's a result of colonization.
Kia ora.
And it's also a result of our education system, because we get trained to whai kōrero in school. Kia ora, ngā manu kōrero. We don't get trained to karanga in school. There is no karanga manu kōrero. You know? So it's actually the debate, the actual debate around whether or not women should be allowed to whai kōrero is a result of colonization. Because colonizers acknowledge and give mana to the male speakers. The female speakers are completely invisible. The karanga is completely invisible to the colonizer's mind. And it's only the male speech that is acknowledged. So the debate whether or not women should be allowed to speak or not is actually a colonization, and it's moot, because karanga is our speech. Karanga is kua whai kōrero te wahine I roto I tōna karanga. So the debate, the debate that whai kōrero has more mana, and there's, you know, me whai tērā, women should be allowed to do this. No, that's the colonization that's speaking. So he tika tāu, kua whai kōrero ke te wahine roto I ona karanga. And there is a very distinct difference in our languages. So the karanga is very metaphorical. He tika tuia te rangi ka tuia ki te whenua. Ka tuia ngā whakapapa, ka tuia ngā taura here ngā tāngata, ka tuia ngā mea katoa e te wahine. Ko tērā te kupu whakamutunga. And ko tērā, ko tōna karanga, koera te tūā papa mo te hui. So she's completely laying down the foundation of that hui, and then the male whai kōrero is weaving everything together, just keeps weaving that whāriki together. Kia tau pai ai, that, you know, that foundation, that papa, for our hui. It's very functional. Our tikanga is very functional and very practical. And so I just, e mihana kia koe tiri ana I o kōrero. And I think, you know, I'm really all for including karanga in our manu kōrero. Absolutely. We're not being trained.
Tautoko marika. Tautoko marika.
The education system is training us to whai kōrero. It's not training us to karanga. And the impacts, the long-term impacts on that is that people can't hear our karanga. They don't know what we're saying. They don't get the metaphors. They don't get the imagery and the symbolism and the beauty and the skill of a kai karanga to weave all of her thoughts into just a few sentences. That is mastery. And that mastery is not being taught. So he wero tēnei, actually he wero tēnei kia Ngāti Maniapoto. And our next manu kōrero, let's have a karanga section. Let's have a karanga section where we are teaching our men and our women the art of karanga. And our men can start weaving our karanga kupu into their whai kōrero. He koaunga, koere te koaunga.
Kia ora. Tautoko.
Tautoko.
Hey, tāpiri, we need to reclaim the value of toi. And toi doesn't mean just art. That was our literacy, you know, and our tuku, our whakairo, and our taniko, and our everything. That was it. Revalue, or reclaim, you know, and value all of those as being the utmost, the pinnacle of what we do, you know. So rather than writing a 5,000 word essay or a doctorate that has whatever amount of words, you know, well then you go and complete a kaitaka huaki, no, all of that, because that is like the tino, the tino. And then because in your aho, you're telling your karanga, your whai kōrero, you know, and then the whenua is your DNA. So all of that's getting passed on through your whakapapa and all that sort of stuff. And just to add to the Maniapoto new framework now for whatever we're going to call it, the Nehenehenui something, is perhaps, you know, they work in harmony. So the female will do karanga pao, maioha, or whatever. And everything's impromptu. So you've got to get up and do whatever. And then the male has to hangai his whai kōrero to the metaphoricness that has just been created in the pao karanga maioha. And then kamutu ki reira, then the wahine has already either created a waiata or finds a waiata, hei tautoko, hei kinaki i te whai kōrero, and then e kōwhia e ara e.
Yeah. Mauri ora.
Can I just add to that? Sorry, because what the toi also is that when, like, I mean, there's also other aspects of pōwhiri that have been forgotten about. There's kaihākari, there's poroporaki. Those two are very, very important. And it's like looking at where do these wahanga of pōwhiri come from? I'm just going to say it here because this seems like a good platform to say it. I've grown up knowing that kaihākari it is our reenactment of kai tangata. You know, no te hoia ka mutu ki roto i te pakanga, ka hari atu e tai timotimonga o ona hoariri, you know, e ka hoki atu ka noho ki roto I tōna tapu. He sits within his tapu and ka timo atu, he eats that. And that's how he comes out of the tapu of, you know, being in battle. And when I look at our pōwhiri, I think that's actually really important because that's showing us that, you know, we hear a lot that our tupuna were savages, but that shows that you know, he tikanga katoa kei roto. There is no savagery. Everything about us was beautiful. Everything about us was, you know, Māori, meki.
Kia ora. Ka rawe tēnei kōrero e ngā kahi. It's, you know, I think we've just...
I think you've started something here.
We started a karanga movement and a toi
Absolutely.
movement.
Is this the new committee for Nehenehenui?
All those in favour say aye. No.
Aye.
But I mean, look at this. This is the beauty of wānanga. You know, you come with one kaupapa and then ka taka mai ngiti atu. It's just been awesome. It's awesome. E mihi ana ki ngā kōrero, ngā whakaaro o tēnā o tātou. It's awesome. And look what comes to fruition. The kaupapa that Elena and Tiriana are going to drive. Oh, ka rawi.
And while we've been having our little wānanga out there, people have been watching us on Facebook, and we've got another pātai that's just quickly come in. So I think we're going to bring this one up And it is from Auntie Sonia. Tēnā koe. Kia ora koutou to you all, you beautiful rangatahi. Oh, thank you, Auntie. Thank you for all your mahi that you do. I love and I agree and understand what our needs as Māori and as maniapoto to uphold our tikanga, our whaka and our whakakotaitanga. Engari, many of our kaumātua in kuia who are trying to uphold these ideas on our marae are today isolating at home, ill from this ngangara COVID-19. When should tikanga for our marae be flexed so that we can preserve the health of our kaumātua? Pai tēnā ko pātai, Auntie. Pai tēnā pātai. And I think we finished on today. We'll come right back up to the top to you, Raukura. Have you got a whakautu there for Auntie Sonia?
I think, I think Auntie's asking when should tikanga for our marae be flexed so we can preserve the health of our kaumātua? I think all the time, Auntie. Mm. I think all the time. Our tikanga need to be flexed all the time. And it's important for us to not be stuck and not be so maro that our kaumātua, particularly at this time, our kaumātua get ill. That's not okay. So it's very simple for me. Our tikanga need to be flexed all the time, and we need to be constantly reviewing our practices. Yeah.
Kia ora. Renee, have you got any kōrero to add to this pātai from Auntie?
Oh, I totally agree. I totally agree with the kōrero Raukura. I've been in the situation where I've been pushed forward to take on roles that normally a ruruhi would take on because of the preservation of their health. I've been to different paukai recently and koe tete o ngā reo, purely because, if we hoki ate ki te tongi kura tō tātou kingi, amohia ki te oro te kia puta ki te whaiau ki te amarama. So we had a group of kaumātua who went well, but I wouldn't be able to be put in that position if they didn't allow me to do it, if they didn't trust in me. So that's where there's that bit of, I work with you, you work with me, because we both have different skill sets that complement one another. And if we can work together, you can see the hua that will come to fruition, o ngā hua ka puta. So definitely we need to keep in mind the health of our kaumātua, and that's when we, like Raukura said, we are flexible with our tikanga and we do it to shape and fit us, our marae, our people.
Kia ora. Tēnā koe, Renee. Tēnā koe. Tariana, any whakaro to add to Auntie's pātai?
I think the biggest one, Auntie, is, as everybody's mentioned, is that we have, kia hau nei, our kaumātua are the Māori of our marae. And when I think of Māori and wairua, Māori is fleeting, whereas wairua is somewhat not fleeting. And what I mean by that is that Māori, so for example, what I say as it comes out, the Māori of the kōrero comes out, but what's left is the wairua. I sit in this room and it's my Māori that is present, but I leave behind the wairua of my kōrero. Just as this live stream will end, the wairua that is left behind will be left with everybody that will continue to think about it. Now, when I think of it in that respect, is the Māori of our marae, kia hau nei, starts with our kaumātua. Okay, ka tīmata ki reira. It starts with our kaumātua. So yes, absolutely, we need to flex all the time with our flex our tikanga and allow our kaumātua to be present. And if that means having to just change things up a little, then kei te pai tēnā, kei te ora tonu te tikanga, kei te ora tonu te tangata, kei te ora tonu te kaupapa. And that's, Te Ao Māori is all about.
Kia ora. Tēnā koe, Tariana. Tēnā koe. Malaina, anything to add to that kōrero there?
Oh, I think everyone said it. I just want to make 2 points. Renee, you're on the committee because your husband wants to be on. And Tiriana, you need to work on the succession plan so that good Māori goes down and comes back to
Yeah.
Can we not mention the succession plan now?
Oh, ka pai te whānau, ka pai. We've got one more question that's just come in, so we're going to quickly chuck this one up. And this one's from Dane. Tēnā koe, Dane. With the digital pōwhiri, do those who are observing online need to have a kai afterwards? Not that we struggle to find any excuse to have one anyway, but pai tēnā pātai, Dane. Yeah, that's a good one because and if we were there face to face, we'd have one definitely. And we don't have one just to have a kai, you know, there's a tikanga behind it. So yeah, in the digital space, we'll come to you first, Rokura. What do you reckon?
Why not? Why not? And you know, kei roto ia koe, and you just know. You know when you're in that space, you know, mea he tangihanga, and you just, ko maringi ngā roimata, ko heke ngā hupe, you know, and ko te kai, he hiki te tapu. He hiki taua tapu. So, yeah, why not? Have a kai. Have a kai after you've had that experience with the pōwhiri. Now, of course, it'll depend on the pōwhiri, because if it's just another, you know, a pōwhiri whakatau, e harape ai te kaupapa toimaha, kei a koe, you might even be able to have a kai while you're in the port, you know, having a cup of tea. It's a digital space. But I really, you know, that's something that I would leave up to individuals, depending on their wairua, which is a kaupapa, a theme that's been coming through our wairua and our Māori. He hiki te wairua, he hiki te Māori, he whakarauora i te Māori, koere te mahi o te kai.
Kia ora.
So, yeah, kei tātou.
I must say I've been in that situation here at home where I was at a digital karakia for tangihanga, and I was sitting here and I had my pōtai on, and then we started karakia and I took it off and I looked at myself, I looked around the room, it was just me here, and I was like, did I need to take my hat off or what? So I just left it off, you know. It's those situations where you find yourself, I'm not even there, but yeah, now I need to go to the wharepaku, or do I just wait? You know, it's those sort of things that you, when you're in this sort of space. But same pātai to you, Renee, from Dane. What do you reckon? Have a kai, not have a kai?
Oh, of course. Taitoko nā kōrero a raukura, tuakana raukura, koina.
Tiriana, same? Or?
Absolutely, have a kai. Can never not have a kai.
Malena? Kai's on, whānau. There you go, Dane. Thank you for your pātai. Mihi ana kia koutou. Te horo marae. Tēnā koutou. Ka pai. Rightio e te whānau. We've been answering questions left, right and centre. And we're on our final one now. We can see the finish line. But the kōrero's been mean. And I know we can go till the early morning, but we're going to have one more pātai. And the pātai is everyone will have a chance to answer this one in simple ways. But what to your fellas whakaaro? What to your fellas whakaaro? Your own personal whakaaro. What do you think the future of our tikanga looks like from this day forward? What's your fellas whakaaro? And we're going to start from the bottom this time, because I can see Rokura having a real big think about this one. And we'll start with Malena, then we'll move our way back up.
Oh, I think it's going to be beautiful. It will be beautiful because this reanga is courageous, reflective, optimistic, and the potential is awesome. And it's not that we're going to disregard anything that all the traditional stuff that are absolutely vital. It's none of that. It's just the auaha that exists now is amazing. I think it will be full of ora, and it's just going to look different, like the new frontier. like Raukura suggested. So that's just my personal opinion. Mauri ora.
Mauri ora, Mauri ora. Kia koe Tiriana, what does the future of tikanga look like in your kari?
I think the future of tikanga, to me, it's quite big. I mean, I see it existing in mātauranga Māori, and I see mātauranga Māori being taken to all new heights. I mean, it's now being looked at as being, like, Māori are being viewed as having already known what Pākehā are discovering. And to me, tikanga has been what we learnt from that knowing that science is trying to come to understand. One of those things for our whānau to know it, or note at home, is if you look at Ranginui and Papatuanuku, the separation, if you go onto YouTube and you Google, have a look at what the carbon layer was on the planet Earth back 4 billion years ago, you'll find that that carbon layer separated and created the ozone layer. Our tupuna described that, and scientists are blown away by that. That happened over 4 billion years ago.
Tautoko, kia ora.
Kia ora, kia ora. Renee, kia whakaro, what does tikanga look like in the future?
I'm excited. I'm really excited to what it's going to look like. You know, as the kōrero that's been said, the thinking space, you know, our reanga e ngā ringa e heke mai ana, digital natives, they're navigators, they're fearless, they're resilient, and they're ready to take up any challenge, but at the same time working with what we have, but making it fit and making it a bit better for us, for the times that are ahead of us, because we don't know what tomorrow's going to look like. We don't even know what 2 years down the track's going to look like. So we're resilient people, we're clever. Our tupuna have shown us that, tawhaki has shown us that we can adapt to any situation, and that we can bounce back from whatever, and we can hide e tonu. I mean, e whea ke ngā tongi kura, e whea ke ngā paki waitara, kua whakatakotoria hei tuapapa mā tātou. So I'm excited, and I look forward to the movement. I look forward to working with our people, my people, to see where we go with this, being inclusive, all-inclusive, being whānau. And I love what Raukura said before, there's no labels, it's not vaccinated, unvaccinated, it's whānau, it's us, as ngā iwi o te Nehenehenui, ngai tātou te iwi Māori. It's an exciting time, it's going to be an exciting space, and I look forward to it. I look forward to the conversations, the courageous conversations, pushing boundaries, and keeping in mind that we work together, tāne mai, wahine mai, kaumātua mai, tamariki mai. So exciting times, exciting times.
Kia ora, tēnā koe, Renee, thank you for that. And finally, this pātai for you, Raukura, what does it look like? What does tikanga look like to you in the future?
Yeah, I mean, everyone really has nailed it. Tikanga Māori is going to be a discovery. It really is. The world changes so fast. And if you think about the world since our grandparents, who barely had the wireless, and then they maybe had a TV, and then maybe they were lucky, you know, had one channel, through to the digital age where we're now creating pāmatihiko. I mean, it's all a discovery. And I think the thing that will get us through this, and Renee said it, is courage. It's actually going to require courage for us to really keep going and keep discovering and keep creating new tikanga. So it is exciting. It really is exciting. And I think the word for the new tikanga is going to be courage.
Ai, kia ora, tēnā rā koutou katoa. Thank you to our panelists for the meanest kōrero we've had this evening. And Melina, do you want to, ka pai. I thought she was going to add to the kōrero. Ke te pai, but we've had the meanest kōrero, and I thank yous all for bringing what you have to the table this evening. And I think you may have sparked some future kōrero, some future puna kōrero, I think, just from tonight's kōrero. So tēnei te mihi atu kia koutou. ngā tuahine, ni aku tuakana. E mihi ana mō koutou whakaro, o koutou manakitanga, o koutou arohatanga kia mātou toiwi o Ngāti Maniapoto. Nō reira, tēnei te mihi, tēnei te mihi. Thank you very much for jumping on this evening, e te whānau. Kia ora tātou.
Kia ora, cuz.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
And I want to do a big mihi to our whānau that are watching at home on our Facebook and on our Instagram, on our Twitter and on our YouTube as well. Thank you for sending in those pātai, and I hope we answered them to the best of our ability, but e mihi ana kia koutou, e mā takitaki mai ana, marunga ngā ipurangi nō reira. Kei te mihi kia koutou, kei te koinā, tēnā rā koutou katoa. Well, e te whānau, it's been massive, and I hope you guys all enjoyed the kōrero this evening. I definitely did. I learnt a lot, as well as a lot of our whānau at home as well. So I hope you've filled your cups just like I have. I came in with an empty cup and I've come out with 2 bottles. So yeah, that's a good takeaway from any wānanga, I think. But just a reminder to our whānau at home, we will be taking a break from Te Puna Kōrero o Te Nehenehenui, as our MFM staff will be in wānanga mode next week. And I think some of these kōrero that we spoke about tonight could possibly end up in our MFM wānanga next week as well. So I'll be looking forward to that. So from me, from our whare here at MFM, and from our panelists, this evening, e mihi ana kia koutou katoa. Have a good night e te whānau, and pō mari e.
Pō mari.